Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jeevanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadaatatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhurida Jana. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna with the devotees at Dakshineshwar. So in the last class we saw that Sri Ramakrishna was elucidating, describing the Advaitic knowledge, the knowledge of the Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, with the help of a parable. That was the parable was, there was a farmer to whom an only son was born when he was rather advanced in age. As the child grew up, his parents became very fond of him. One day the farmer was out working in the fields when a neighbor told him that his son was dangerously ill indeed, at the point of death. Returning home, he found the boy dead. His wife wept bitterly, but his own eyes remained dry. Sadly, the wife said to her neighbors, "Such a son has passed away, and he hasn't even one tear to shed." After a long while, the farmer said to his wife, "Do you know why I am not crying? Last night I dreamt I had become a king and the father of 7 princes. These princes were beautiful as well as virtuous. They grew in stature and acquired wisdom and knowledge in the various arts. Suddenly I woke up. Now I have been wondering whether I should weep for those 7 children or this one boy. To the Gyanis, the waking state is no more real than the dream state." As we were saying in Vedanta, this is the idea that the one whose existence is not obliterated by any phase of time, past, present, or future, that alone is true. That alone is the self. So now we find that the experience in the dream state is contradicted by the experience of the waking state. When I wake up, I realize I was dreaming. It's not true. Similarly, when I am dreaming, I have the conviction at that time when I am dreaming, I never think that it is unreal. It is true. So the experience of the dream state is contradicted by the experience of the waking state, and the vice versa. So that way, we find that the experiences as such are not real. They had an origin at certain point of time. They were therefore at certain point of time, and they came to an end at certain point of time. When I was dreaming for that phase of the dream, my experiences were true. When I am awake for the state of wakefulness, the experiences are true, but they are not Trikalavadita. Because, as we say, they were contradicted by the other states. Once the dream breaks, or once when I go to sleep, the wakeful state is contradicted by the dream state is contradicted by the wakeful state. But what is Trikalavadita? I never doubt the experiencer. Do I ever feel the experiences are contradicting? But do I ever feel it is me who was not dreaming? When I wake up, I find that yes, the dreams, the experiences are contradicted, but it is me who was dreaming. So it is the experiencer who was existing in all the 3 phases of time. Whether it is the dream state, whether it is the waking state, or it's the deep sleep state. When I am in deep sleep, I wake up from the deep sleep and I say, "Oh, what a nice sleep I had." So there is an experience of the deep sleep too. So all this, the one who is experiencing, for him there is no alteration, no change. That was, that is, that will be. So that experiencer is true, all the things which are experiences are false. So that way, even the state of wakefulness, where I see the world, which I tick there, which I consider to be something tangibly true. So in Vedanta they say, no, that also is, as far as the ultimate reality is concerned, is not true. So when we go beyond these three states, in the state of Turiya, through spiritual realization, when I realize, when I become identified with that experiencer, then I know that even the waking state is also like a dream. It's a long dream of life after life, but it's a dream. And then only I can understand that all these experiences were something which was superimposed on the self alone is real, everything else is illusory. So that's, through that parable, Sri Ramakrishna is trying to elucidate that idea. So after that we will find this conversation was going on with Hajra. So now Hajra, after hearing this wonderful parable, this allegory of Sri Ramakrishna, now he is again responding. He is asking his doubt, what he is saying, but it is very difficult to understand the law of karma. So now the one who realizes that I am the experiences, I am the experiencer, all the experiences are not me, I am just the witness of all the experiences. Can he get rid of the karma? Even we will find they are also tied down as if by the laws of karma. That's what Hajra is indicating, what he's saying. But it is very difficult to understand the law of karma. That generally we have the idea that when I go to the spiritual realization, all my suffering will end. Atyantika dukkha nivritti parama sukha prapti. That's what we all think. But we will find that even a man of realization is going through the suffering. That's what Hajra is now pointing out. What he's saying, take the case of the sadhu of Bhu Kailas. A particular sadhu, we are not aware of it at present. In those days, it was a news that there was a case of a sadhu of Bhu Kailas. What's the happening? What was the incident that happened? How people tortured him and in a way killed him. They had found him in samadhi. First they buried him, then they put him under water and they branded him with a hot iron. Thus they brought him back to consciousness of the world, but in the end the sadhu died as a result of these tortures. He undoubtedly suffered at the hands of men, though, as you say, he died by the will of God. So, here we find that some incident that happened in those days is being related by Hajra. That the one who is in samadhi, that all our spiritual practices are supposed to take us beyond suffering. But here we find that he has been tortured to death. He was in samadhi, people out of curiosity to find out that is he really feigning or is he really in the deep state of samadhi, because we have heard that when you are in the state of samadhi, you are not aware of your body. So whether it's a fact, out of curiosity, those people, this cruel act, they was putting him under water, they buried him, they branded him with hot iron, all sorts of things they were doing, and at last, when he came back to consciousness, this all those torture, that was the result for his death, his died. So he undoubtedly suffered in the hands of men, though you say he died by the will of God. So how to resolve this contradiction? Then what's the use of going to that spiritual state if still he is under these bounds of suffering of this worldly existence? So now we will find Sri Ramakrishna that that's where we make the mistake. That when I am established in the self, I may still continue to exist in the body as a Jivan Mukta Purusha. That I am no more identified with the body. The body, because of its past karma, the prarabdha, which we can never escape, because of that, it may still have to go through certain experiences. But is the person suffering? The world may feel he is suffering, but the person somehow has totally detached himself from the body. Just the way when someone else is suffering, I witness, I don't feel the pain. Similarly, for this person, they also can see their own body objectively, that it is going through the pain. It is not that they don't feel the pain. The pain is felt, but objectively, that it is no more the me. The sense of identification has gone. So that way, he is, though the suffering is going on in his body, we cannot say that he is suffering. As in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, we find when he was suffering from cancer, when someone is to ask him that, how are you? So he used to say, that was a very oft quotation of him, that Shorir tar dukkho jane, mon tumi anande thako. The body knows its suffering, or the mind be at peace because of your identification with the self. So that's the thing which we find Sri Ramakrishna again and again saying. So this is the thing which most of us don't understand. As Swami Vivekananda used to say very nicely, that for most of us, what is spirituality? It is that God is just a means, world is the end. It is just a materialism. We don't want God. We don't want to get established in the spiritual state. We want all the worldly pleasures. God is just the means. I will pray to Him, I will meditate so that I can avoid the sufferings of life. So that is not spirituality. The Swamiji is saying, where God is the means, world is the end, that is sheer materialism. But most of us just confuse that to be the spirituality. So here we will find now Sri Ramakrishna is giving a very nice answer. What is saying? Master, the Kavirajas, means this, the traditional Ayurvedic doctors, the Kaviraj, they prepare Makaradhwaja in a bottle. It's a type of Ayurvedic medicine, Makaradhwaja. The bottle is covered with clay and heated in the fire. The gold inside the bottle melts and combines with other ingredients, and the medicine is made. Then the physicians break the bottle carefully and take out the medicine. When the medicine is made, what difference does it make whether the bottle is preserved or broken? So people think that the holy man was killed, but perhaps his inner stuff had been made. After the realization of God, what difference does it make whether the body lives or dies? So Sri Ramakrishna is saying that he was in deep samadhi. So he has attained the goal which he has to attain in this human birth. Jivan mukti sukha prapti hetave janmadharan. He has attained that state. So and he is giving the example of this Ayurvedic medicine called Makaradhwaja. It needs crystallization. That so many things are poured. This is in a very is an extreme heat. It is poured inside a bottle. They are then in the form of liquid, and also gold is also one of the ingredient. The gold is also in the form of liquid because of heat, and then they are allowed to crystallize. Now, when it has crystallized, now you cannot take it out from the bottle. So the only way you have to break the bottle to get the medicine. So what's the use of the bottle once the purpose for which the bottle was used, that to crystallize that Ayurvedic medicine, the bottle was used. Once the crystallized medicine has been formed, the bottle serves no purpose. So whether it stays or it breaks, that's of no use. Its purpose has been done. So the body is the launching pad of the soul. So once that has been done, what's the use of the launching pad? Once the rocket has been ejected, the launching pad's purpose has been done. So body is just like that launching pad. The soul has to be liberated. Once it is done, this body is there for all the spiritual practices which helps us to go to that illumination. Once that is done, whether the body stays or it's destroyed, that becomes irrelevant. That has no relevance. But still, that why the body should go through some suffering. So here we find in Vedanta there is the idea of this prarabdha. That so much, that all the actions which we do through series of lives we are going through, the results of these actions have to be fructified. We have to experience the result either in this life or in the next life or in some still more future life. So all the results of actions which we have accrued, they are called sanchita karma. They have been stored. Of this sanchita karma, the stored action karma, a particular lot, a particular batch of this karma, sanchita karma, that will effectualize in the next birth, in the coming birth. So it's not that in one birth we cannot experience the results of all the actions which we have done. Only a particular set of those actions which we have done, which is stored in our psyche, a particular set will be fructified. That is decided at the time of birth. That will be fructified in the forthcoming birth. So this action which will be fructified in the forthcoming birth is the prarabdha. So prarabdha karma, we can say, is a subset of Satchita karma. There's all this karma which is being stored. Of that, a particular subset of karma which will be fructified in the next birth is prarabdha. And there's another karma, that when I am born again in the next birth, I am not just sitting idle. We again, as per responsibilities, as per our position in life, we are going through some actions. So we are creating new karma. So the actions which we are doing at present, they are called kriyamana, whose results will be in the future, agami. So that's why this karma is either called kriyamana or agami. If I take the action of the present which I am doing, that is kriyamana, and the results which are accrued, again, this is also stored to be fructified in some future birth. So that is known as agami. So there's three types of karma: sanchita, prarabdha, kriyamana. So for a man of realization, the moment through our spiritual endeavor, one goes to the spiritual realization, is identified with the self. The sanchita and the kriyamana karma is not going to have any effect. They just simply get destroyed. But the prarabdha, the actions whose result has already just set in, whose fruition has set in, that has to be exhausted. Swami Vivekananda gives a very nice example, that suppose there are two wheels connected by an axle, and that wheels are moving. In the olden days, the chariots, the carts, everything had these two wheels connected by an axle. Now when the wheels are moving, both the wheels are moving. Now suppose someone holds one of the wheel and cuts the axle. What will happen? The wheel which you are holding and the portion of the axle which is still connected with the whole wheel which you are holding, that will stop. But the other wheel, along with that small portion of the axle which is attached to that because of its past momentum will go on rotating for some time till its momentum is exhausted, and then it stops. It falls, it stops. So Swamiji is saying this one will is the self, the other will is this body-mind complex. What is realization? When I detach the self from the body-mind complex, that's the state of this illumination. I have severed the bond. I have cut the bond between these two. The self, which actually is not moving, is not going through any changes, But as long as it is identified with the body-mind complex, it appears as if it is also going through this process of transmigration. But the moment that bond is severed, this idea that the self is going through birth and death, that falls off. But the past momentum, which is on the other wheel, that's the body, that past momentum won't allow it to stop immediately. It will go on revolving for some time till the momentum is exhausted, and then it stops. So that's what Swamiji is given an example. We can understand it with another example which so many times we have given, that in the summer when the fan is revolving. Why it is revolving? Because it is connected through some power point. So current is passing. Now when I switch off, I sever the bond of that current. The connection is cut. So the power is like the self, the fan is like the body. I have severed. When the switching off means that when I go to the realization, I have cut that identification of the self with the body. So it is no more connected with the source, with the current. But will it stop immediately? No. Because of its past momentum, it will go on revolving for some time till that momentum gets exhausted, and then it stops. So now we will understand what this prarabdha is. The momentum which has started a particular body, that has to get exhausted even you have went to that realization. So that has to go and then fall off. So now you will understand that in this example, what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating is the same thing. That when Makaradhwaja has been formed, means one has attained the realization. Now whether the body stays or dies is in no way going to affect the soul. It has already stopped its identification with the body-mind's complex and has gone beyond the idea of transmigration. But the body, because of its past momentum, prarabdha, we don't know. It may be some good karma or it may be some bad karma, whatever it may be. Accordingly, the prarabdha is set in and it has to go through those experiences. But that in no way is affecting the soul, because the crystallization has happened. Whether the body stays or dies, that is in no way going to affect him. The suffering is in no way going to affect him. So we will find that same a wonderful story in the life of Buddha. There was a robber, a very ill-famed robber named Angulimala. He used to rob the people by the side of the highway. Whoever is to pass, he will rob him, and not only that, he will kill him. And as a memento that how many people he have killed, such a cruel person he was, he will cut one of the fingers, and with that he will make a necklace. That the number of fingers says the number of persons he have killed. He will go on adding that fingers. So that's why he was called Angulimala. Anguli means fingers. So once Buddha was passing through that highway, the villagers warned him, "Sir, please don't go that way. There's a very notorious dacoit there, extremely cruel." Buddha said, "Don't worry. I know how to pacify him." And he was passing through that road. Angulimala came and tried to attack him from behind. He asked him to stop. And Buddha's reply was, "I have stopped. It is you who have to stop." So this Angulimala for the first time found a man very calm, quiet, and he's saying something which makes no sense. And then he asked, "What do you mean?" He says, "Long back, for many births together, that I have been going through all these spiritual disciplines, which speaks of getting rid of all the negativities, cruelty, and this untruthfulness, all this deception. I have just stopped these negativities long back. Many lives have before. I have already stopped. I am going through this sadhana for lives together, and I have now come to a state where all this, the entire phenomenal existence, as if it's going to fall off. It has, as such, no meaning for me. So I have stopped. It is you who have to stop. Now Angulimala, in the presence of Buddha, this personality is such that he was immediately transformed. He was highly inspired. And he left and he just abandoned his way of life, this evil way of life, and followed Buddha. He also became a monk. And he was so peaceful. His demeanor was so peaceful that idea of himsa totally has fallen off from him. That's why he was named Ahimsaka, the one who was a killer. He was now named as Ahimsaka, the one who has gone beyond all cruelty, all himsa, all violence. But people won't understand. One day, as a monk, when he went out for begging, the villagers some recognized, oh, this is the Angulimala. And they beat him, and it was fatal. He had some fatal injury because the villagers gave him a nice beating. And it was so fatal that somehow he managed to come back to the monastery. And his last wish was to see Buddha. He had no regret. Just see that this same Angulimala, who was so cruel, this at the time of his death, his name was so appropriate, that Ahimsaka, in spite of the fact that he has been harmed, physically harmed, to the point that he is going to die, he had no regret. His last wish was to be in the presence of Buddha, and with that full peace in his mind, he left his body. So this speaks of that prarabdha. All the evil acts which he have done, its result has to be, this experienced, because he has already created that prarabdha. It has to be experienced. So he has to go through that. But he has, after all, disidentified himself from his body-mind complex. Outwardly, we see that Angulimala is going through that immense suffering. But Angulimala himself was at immense peace at the time of dying, because he has totally disidentified himself from the body-mind complex. So this wonderful spiritual ideals, Sri Ramakrishna is trying to explain to the devotees like Hajra. So for most of us, we are like Hajra. For us, spirituality means what? That it will help us to escape the suffering of the world. We never take it in its proper sense. That how that escape of the suffering of the world doesn't mean literally to get rid of all the happenings of life. The happenings of life goes on as per our karma, but what stops is the reaction. That suffering doesn't come from the happening of life. How we react to the situation, that's the cause of our suffering. And that reaction has stopped. That's why Swami Vivekananda in the Karma Yoga, in the very first lecture, he starts with that. The highest ideal is non-violence. But it is not for all. Only a realized soul can practice that non-violence. Till we reach that state, we have to go through all those various practices where we shouldn't be feigning non-violence. That because it is not something which is coming from within me. I have to go to that state where really I will find that I have totally disidentified myself from body-mind complex. I am always one with the self or one with the God. Then only we'll find it is in all the spiritual tradition, this idea is there, this highest idea of non-violence. That even Jesus in the cross, what it is saying, after so much of persecution, the mass has tortured him, slaughtered him. Still, when he was crucified, in the last moment of his life, what's the prayer? As he is identified with the God, please forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing. So this is the idea. This comes on that state. So the body goes through its courses which it is supposed to go through. But the mind is at peace, being identified with the self, with the supreme self, with God. So that's the idea which we find how nicely it has been spoken of in this allegory. Even in the Upanishads we find this. In the Mundaka Upanishad, there's a wonderful mantra. What's that? Vidyate hridaya granthi chiddhante sarva sanshaya kshiyante chasya karmani tasmin drishte paravare. The ultimate realities has been called as paravara, para-avara. That when you go to the realization, see, this Upanishad also speaks that a state of vijnana, para-avara, that it is when I am still in the bonds of ignorance. I have to negate this world. Oh, it is something not divine. And then through this process of negation, at last I go to that realization. I attain the para, the transcendent reality. And then what I realize when I come back from that state? The avara, this entire existence, para, avara, this is something lower. That is not apart from the divine. It is the divine which is being projected as the world. So the ultimate reality has been spoken of as this paravara, the one who is transcendent as well as immanent. That is the paravara. So one who has realized him, what happens? Vidyate hridaya. This all the knots of the heart, they tear apart, they tear asunder. Vidyate, they all break off. So all the bonds of the heart, knots of the heart, they break off. This chidyante sarva sanshaya. There cannot be any more doubt. Now, after reading Vedanta, I may feel, oh, I am the self. But when I am going through the sufferings of life, I find this knowledge doesn't help. Then I doubt, is this knowledge correct? Or is it just some make-believe? Because I'm still identified with the body. So this knowledge has not taken me beyond confusion. But once you go to the realization, you find nothing can affect you. And then there is no question of doubt. That's the idea, that chidyante sarva sanshaya. All sanshaya, all the doubts falls off, never to come back again. Because you have realized the self. And then kshiyante chasya karmani. All the karma, that also gets expended. So here, this karma means the sanchita and the kriyamana karma. But the prarabdha we have to go through. But this tasmin drishti, once you have seen that ultimate reality. There's a nice allegory in Vedanta to explain this how this prarabdha we have to experience. They give the example of a hunter. A hunter, you know that in the olden days they used to use bow and arrow. Now, to keep the arrows, you will have a bunch of arrows. So they had some quiver. There's a basket-like thing on the shoulder in which the arrows were kept. That basket is called quiver. So all these arrows are like the sanchita karma. They are kept in that quiver, the basket. Now, seeing a bird sitting on the branch of a tree, the hunter thinks of just shooting the bird with an arrow. So what he does, with the bow in one hand, he takes out one arrow and places it on the bow. And then he shoots it. So the arrow is now on the way. But this hunter is not sure whether it will hit the mark. It may miss. So, to be sure that he can shoot the bird, he now takes out the second arrow. The first arrow is still is yet to hit the mark, and he has taken out the second arrow, and again he has put on the bow, on the bow. And this bow, and then now vairagya comes. This idea of ahimsa, non-violence, somehow dawns in his heart. Oh no, I shouldn't kill the bird. I shouldn't kill others. I shouldn't injure others. So now what will happen? The arrow which he was about to shoot, he won't shoot anymore. All the arrows which are in the quiver, they won't be used anymore. But the arrow which has been shot, which is yet to hit the mark, he also is not sure whether it will hit the mark or not. Whatever will be the result, it may hit the mark or it may not. The result is not known. but the momentum has already set in. Does the hunter in any way have any control over that arrow? No. So prarabdha is the one which is yet to hit the mark, which is that arrow which has been shot. I have no control over it. But the arrow which I was about to shoot, I am not going to shoot it anymore. All the arrows which are on the quiver, they are also not to be used anymore. So the sanchita and the kriyamana, they are not going to they are not going to fructify. So that's what is meant by kshiyante cha asya karmani. All the karmas, they kshiyante, they just gets nullified. They have no effect on us. So this wonderful sloka, this reflection which we find is in this wonderful allegory which Sri Ramakrishna is narrating. Then Sri Ramakrishna, after hearing of samadhi, now Sri Ramakrishna is a man of experience. He has gone through all these various varied spiritual experiences. So naturally, when someone speaks of any of the spiritual truth, whether exemplified in one's life or being written in some scripture, immediately he relates it with his own experiences. So his life has become a commentary of the scriptures. That what is written in the scriptures must be true because they were demonstrated through the life of Sri Ramakrishna. That we find in his words. What he's saying next about the different kinds of samadhi, that how he has experienced, that he is indicating. The sadhu of Bhukailas was in samadhi. There are many kinds of samadhi. My own spiritual experiences tally with the words I heard from a sadhu of Rishikesh. Sometimes I feel the rise of the spiritual current inside me, as though it were the creeping of an ant. Sometimes it feels like the movement of a monkey jumping from one branch to another. Again, sometimes it feels like a fish swimming in water. Only he who experiences it knows what it is like. In samadhi, one forgets the world. So what Sri Ramakrishna is speaking of here is the rousing of the arousal of the Kundalini Shakti. And when it rises, its movement can be varied as per the intensity of one's spiritual contemplation. This arising of the Kundalini can be varied, and those varied forces of the arousal of the Kundalini is being experienced in these different ways, as we mentioned. That sometimes when it is not that strong, it appears like the creeping of an ant. Slowly it is moving up, creeping of an ant. Sometimes it feels like the movement of a monkey jumping from one branch to another. So it's just like a quantum jump. When the intensity is very strong, it's just not creeping. It as if it's leaping from one branch to another, means from one chakra to the another. This branch is here indicating the chakra. It is jumping as if. And sometimes it feels like a fish swimming in water. So there we find that the motion, like when the fish is swimming in the water, it can be to and fro. So sometimes it can be so that the Kundalini is rising and again falling to certain extent, again it is rising. So it all depends on the intensity of the contemplation. Now what this arousal of the Kundalini speaks of, with our rational mind, if we try to understand, in Raja Yoga, Swamiji gave some very beautiful explanation that what actually this arousal of the Kundalini is. He gives a very nice example. He says, so in the time of Swamiji, already electricity was invented. It was discovered, we will say this, invented, because how to produce electricity, that already was invented, though it was in a very rudimentary form. So he had that, Swami Vivekananda himself had the idea of electricity. So in Raja Yoga, in the lectures, he is saying very interesting thing. What he's saying? That the electricity needs a medium, a wire to pass through. But is it always true? He's saying when the voltage is less, when the electrical power is, the voltage is less, you need a wire. But if the voltage is very high, so in those days, it was already discovered that the thunderbolt is nothing but electricity. So that's what example Swamiji is saying, that when the voltage is very high, as in the case of thunderbolt, an arc is formed, as if connecting the sky with the ground, and the current is passing without the help of any such wire, metallic wire. So what it shows, that if the energy, the electrical energy is very, very intense, it's a very high power, high voltage, then the so-called, this metallic wire as a medium is not required. After saying this, what is now is comparing it with, he is saying similarly, our nerves are like the wires. How it works? So we think a very strong man is lifting weight, a weightlifter is lifting weight, it is the muscles which lift the weight. Swami says it's not true. From the brain, an instruction was given. What? Well, you have to lift the weight. That instruction comes through a nerve, almost invisible, in the form of a nerve current. It's a very subtle electric current. That comes, and then the muscles are flexed. You can flex the muscle, and with that you can lift the weight. So outside it seems the muscles are lifting the weight, but actually it is that subtle nerve current through which the instruction came in through the nerve, that is lifting the weight. So within the body we find that something like that electric current, here also the nerve currents are like that electric currents, which helps to convert my will into action. But here Swamiji says a very interesting thing, that you will find that he is speaking of this, it's even in our scriptures, these three nerve currents, Ira, Pingala, Shushumna, that the spine, that along the spinal cord the nerves are passing, and there are these nerve plexuses are there. These plexuses are like the chakras, equivalent to the chakras, and these nerve currents, very interesting, that one is one of the main nerve is the motor nerve, and another is the sensory nerve. So what it speaks of, that all the perceptions through our indriyas, these speaks of the sensory. So all the perceptions, the sensory passes through the sensory nerves, and then as per the perception we react in some ways. I see the flower, I have to go and pluck it. So it has to, this perception now has to get converted into action. So all the action, the instructions for that passes through the motor nerve. So this Ira and Pingala are nothing but the sensory nerve and the motor nerve, through which all the nerve currents are passing and then branching off to the various parts of the body. But they are the main nerve current, Ira and the Pingala, the sensory and the motor. And between this, in the center, that is called the Shushumna. What is something equivalent to Shushumna in our anatomy? So in the human anatomy, there is something called central canalis. That when all the discs of the spinal cord are placed one above the other, if you take a cross section, you will find each cross section looks like an 8 structure. Means they are placed one above the other. There's one hollow of this 8 inside the spine. The sensory nerve is passing through. Another hollow, the motor nerve is passing through, Ira and Pingala. And where this 8 intersects, the center, there if you consider a hole, so that is the central canalis. There is no nerve. Till now we don't know what that central canalis serve any purpose. Most of us, the science journals speak of is that's where the nutrients, not the nerve, through which the nutrients is passing through that spinal cord just to nourish the spine as well as the nerves, the Ida and Pingala, but it has no nerves. So as per the nerve current is concerned, it is hollow. There is no nervous current passing through that. Now Swamiji says a very interesting thing. Just the way if the voltage is very high, you don't need a wire. Just the electricity can form an arc. It can pass through just the air. Even nowadays we know in the cathode ray tube, from the cathode and the anode, the electricity almost without medium is passing because of the high voltage. So here also the central canalus is the Kundalini. That acts like that hollow space where there is no nerve. But because of the intensity of the meditation, now the nerve, this so-called the nervous sensations has become so strong, it doesn't need the nerves to pass through. It opens up at the bottom of the nerve current where the Kundalini is lying coiled, Muladhara. That is, for most of us, it is lying coiled there, dormant. Just like a snake lying coiled, it is dormant. And then the snake which is lying coiled can raise up when it is irritated. So here also, because of that strong nervous current, this dormant power starts rising up, and it doesn't need any nerves. It is passing through the central canalus. And as it passes through these various plexuses, these plexuses are the chakras, the experiences all start opening up. These plexuses are nothing but the stored files in an office. Maybe some multinational company is there for 50 years, or some corporate body is there for 50 years. The old files, they have not been thrown away. They are there. So our oldest files are just the lower plexuses, which speaks of our experiences as all the this early forms of life. So that's why you find this, when the Kundalini rises, first all the basic instincts wake up. Why? Because you will find as a microbe, that is also a life. What it has, it is just taking food and it is procreating, nothing else. So they are the most earliest stored files. They get activated when the nerve current is rising up through the lower plexuses. Emotion is something much higher. In higher animals, we get that emotion. So when that nerve current comes to the heart, then we find there's an overwhelming emotion, the devotion. That emotion, after emotion, even in other animals we get emotion, but the speech, this vocabulary, language, that's only for the evolved human beings. So when the Kundalini rises, it reaches this, this Vishuddha chakra in the throat. And then you find that Sri Ramakrishna is saying you feel like conversing only of the divine. You become actively vocal. Why? That it has reached that center. So let's see that it all speaks of the evolution, and with the evolution, what's the faculties which you are developing. And after language comes visualization. It's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Emotion, then this language, and then when the emotion, you speak in language, and that when you are speaking to someone, he can visualize. Because as a human, we have the faculty of visualizing, imagination, what it can be. Others, animals don't have. So visualization is still something higher, which is in the Agya chakra, between the eyebrows. It is rising still higher. Where Sri Ramakrishna says you see your Ishta so vividly. You feel as if you can touch him, means you can become one with him. But that, like, that in the olden days they used to burn the chimney. If the glass is clear, the fire can be seen. You feel as if you can touch the fire. But when you approach, that transparent glass comes in the way and it doesn't allow you to touch the fire. So what it speaks, that when you go to the state of visualization, the meditation has become very, very intense. You visualize the deity as real as this palpable world. Visualization is very strong. But at the same time, what has happened? There is still an idea of you and me. That duality is still there. That's what is Sri Ramakrishna speaking. There is a glass, transparent glass. I cannot touch the fire. I cannot become one with it. And then the Sahasrara is the final. That's the state where you go to the Samadhi, where the duality falls off. Triputi Bheda, the distinction of Dhyana, Dhyata, Dheya. That I am meditating, there's an object of meditation, I am the meditator. This distinction falls off. The ego falls off. You become one with the object of meditation, and that's the way you reach the state of Samadhi. So this rising of this Kundalini, that is felt by the one for whom, who is going through this experience. Now when the meditation, this rising also is not always the same. When it is it is just, the meditation is not that strong. So it is just like the creeping of an ant. And when it is tremendously intense, it is like the jumping from one center to the other. So that's what we're saying. There's like a monk it is jumping from. And sometimes those who are absorbed in Leela, there's a variety of mood. That sometimes some listening to the Leela, tremendous emotion is whelming up. And the next moment again, some vivid visualization is happening. So this 5th, 6th, 7th, in these 3 chakras, the Kundalini Shakti as if moves to and fro. So especially for those who are bhaktas, it is moving. So it's like a fish. But at last when it reaches that the 7th point, then one gets absorbed in that Samadhi. The Triputi Bheda happens. The distinction of the meditator, the object of meditation and the process of meditation. This distinction falls off. One becomes as if one with the object of meditation, taking him to that ultimate realization. And this is the thing Sri Ramakrishna, how beautifully is speaking of, because he himself has gone through those experiences, and that he is mentioning in this conversation. Just we will read that once more, and we will stop our discussion for today up to this section. The sadhu of Bhukailas was in Samadhi. There are many kinds of Samadhi. My own spiritual experience tally with the words I heard from a sadhu of Rishikesh. Sometimes I feel the rise of the spiritual current inside me as though it were the creeping of an ant. Sometimes it feels like the movement of a monkey jumping from one branch to another. Again, sometimes it feels like a fish swimming in water. Only who have experiences. After all this, it knows what it is like. In Samadhi, one forgets. That's the ultimate. In Samadhi, one forgets the world. The Triputi Bheda has happened. One has become one with that absolute reality. So, we will continue with Sri Ramakrishna's succeeding conversations again in the next class. Thank you all. Namaskar.